procedures. Here exactly the main thing or the thing that current the developing as a developing country in India, we are seeing the proliferations of the internet connectivity and larger usage of the smartphone and other devices like tablets and all. Basically, that gives an additional privilege to the microfinance institutions to reach out to their customers as well as extend the digitizations, extend their services in the form of digitizations to them. In that particular things, basically the currently what exactly is pertinent to about the target segment of the microfinance customer, which are majorly from the vulnerable segment, having low income with a little or no literacy level. So in the for them, making awareness about the digitizations, that is one of the key activities that is going on, and further making them understand its importance about the continuity of the maintaining the basic the cash within their bank account, and through that particular account then further through the digitizations mode, making the repayment using the MPOS or UPI or say the Vim application, which is very much acceptable nowadays, is really appreciable. What exactly I just wanted to light upon that the microfinance institutions, they have digitized the process like a lending disbursement process in the 100%. The entire lending to the direct customer's account is going on 100% to the bank account of the customer itself. And a significant portions of the customers, they are repaying through that particular applications that I quoted recently. And additionally, the institutions, they are very much focused on the particular digitizations transformations, and they are making investment on within their infrastructure. And that is the reason the data security, what exactly you have recently quoted, the data security, personal data security. Additionally, the firewall system, then security audit in process, data encryptions in that has been in the investment processes within the institutions infrastructure. And the larger institutions, if we talk about within the microfinance segment, the top institutions having the 17 if I specifically categorically speak about the NBFC MFIs, the top 17 NBFC MFIs that constitute near about 90-91% of portfolio of the sector, they are very much well equipped about this particular digitizations processes, and they have already gone a long way to basically to implement that, and they are already doing this such kind of activities. So this is something that is really remarkable, what exactly the in terms of adaptation purpose of what exactly we just wanted to highlight in this particular sector about the microfinance industry. Further, what exactly additional activities that microfinance institutions have carried out right now is the awareness generation and training of their staffs. And that is exactly needed as because the pool of the staff that basically touch the customer at the last mile, they are basically comes from the same background that in this institution serves. So their training, their educational level, that basically sometimes put in a little hindrance. However, the institutions are making full effort at their level to ensure 100% capacity building and they are investing on their staffs and securing that. That is exactly what is going on in this.
Yeah. So one follow-up question. What are the concern of the regulators in this regard?
Okay, regulator are very much, absolutely, I missed that. So regulator are, the primary concerns of the regulator is the personal data protections and the responsible lending by customers protection exactly. On this particular ground, you might have been seeing, even our dignitaries are also aware, there were a detailed guideline given by the Reserve Bank of India on September 2022, that they have clarified that the consent and each and every interfaces being taken from the customers to be interfaces used by the customers to be taken from the customers. Without consent, no third party without consent from the customers, no third party data transfer could be happen. Further, they specifically spoke about the DLA, that is digital lending applications, and the LSP, the lending service providers, about the institute, the RE regulated entities, those are using that particular platform. That particular DLA, LSP should not have that particular storage capacity. That facility should not be given to the DLA, LSPs. Rather, it should be within the institutions that has been deputed or the outsource their particular activities. They have given a small cap on that. The DLA, LSP may use the basic informations like contact details, address, and the customer name. That's it. For to carry out their activities and operations in that manner. Further, RBI on the regulatory perspective, it is that guideline clearly spoke about the security measures that's being taken in the while storing the data. And it has been clarified that the data storage or the server point must be within the country itself. It should not be the outside countries. That is also another questions at earlier times, but there is a clear-cut guideline on this particular terms as well. And last but not the least, the regulatory guidelines, the suitable security measures as per the digital lending act. The digital data protections. What exactly the personal data protection? Whatever the suitable measures that's being given within this particular protection act, that needs to be carried out by the individual REs on that particular file.
Thank you. Arvind, you as an institution handle data for millions of customers. Some of the data is highly sensitive. In fact, all of the data is highly sensitive. You collect biometric data, you collect income data, you collect location data also. So I'm amazed with the kind of data you handle, and in a way you become a custodian of that data. So my first question to you will be what kind of measures you take to protect this kind of sensitive data within the organization, and then what will change when the rules relating to the Digital Personal Data Protection Act come into place?
Thanks, Deepak. Again, very pertinent question. And of course, we know that Digital Personal Data Protection Act is already there, and there's a lot of guidelines which explains us as to how we have to manage that data. And first, you talked about digital transformation. With Habib explained that most of the companies have moved towards complete digital transformation, and what has that led to is collection of information which is stored digitally, and of course in India. But how is it that we are using that information? I think that is what is important. So now with this DPDA Act, what they are trying to say is that you have to give the right to the end user or the customer. Be it can be a vendor, it can be a customer, it can be an employee. They should control how their data is to be used. It is not you who is going to control how that data is to be used. You are just collecting that information and storing that information on behalf of the customer or the stakeholder, let me put it that way. But they should control how it has to be used. Therefore, to provide them facility to add, edit, modify or delete PII, personally identifiable information, from your databases, right? So we are working towards creating that kind of an ecosystem whereby a customer is able to raise a request, I want to remove PII information from your database if I am not getting a loan, right? It so happens that you take in a loan application and not necessarily that all the loans are disbursed. correct? So what happens in that case, that the customer can raise a request to remove that information from your database, and it is upon us as to how we handle that request and ensure that the PII data is removed from the database and send a response back to the customer saying yes, your request has been adhered to and we have removed the PII information. I think that is the most critical part of it, and that is where the companies would have to make huge amount of changes in their ecosystem to cater to such requests. So DPDA extends not only to customers but also to employees, right? So even your existing corporate employees that you have or employees in the company, they might request that once they leave the organization, or if they have applied, they are given a application form at a recruitment level, that they should be able to raise a request and ask you to remove PII data. That means my phone number, my PIN codes, any documents that I have given, my KYC documents should not form a part of your database, right? And if they have raised a request and if it still forms a part of your database, then of course there would be penalties. You know how we operate here, right? So that I think is extremely critical, and that is where most of the companies should be working in a direction to create an ecosystem whereby such requests are adhered to and is managed. I think that is the key in this entire digital journey, because we know everybody is getting digitalized, right? Processes are getting digitalized. People are now more mobile savvy. Like Habib mentioned, the internet penetration in the country is increasing. We know our customers are mobile savvy. Hence, we are collecting a lot of information, like you mentioned. But it is also very important that we have to be prudent as to how we use that information, how we share that information, and how we store that information.
One follow-up question on this DPDP app. Have you started receiving some kind of notification or guidance from some department or some authority so far, or do you have to comply some returns which you have to file?
No, currently there is no returns to be filed, but what it clearly says that you have to have a DPO, data protection officer in place, and a data protection board is to be formed, whereby they should be able to access and review all the grievances related to data points. So any data removal request which comes up, or data modification request which comes up from the customer or from the employees, then you have to have a system in place whereby the DPO or the DPBB can review this and report it to the board.
Thanks. So I guess more clear rules and directions will come in the months to come.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, lots of capacity building requirement for amplifiers, particularly the smaller amplifiers. I'll now move to Dr. Gyanendra Raut. Dr. Gyanendra Raut runs a digital adaptation program for amplifiers at Board Lucknow. So I want to know from you, so when you get the participants for your trainings, what kind of training or capacity building gaps which you see among them, and what is the current level of awareness relating to Digital Data Protection Act? If you could tell us from your experience of running this training.
Thank you, Deepak ji. Esteemed panels in the dais and dear audience. I am currently working in a NABARD training center at Lucknow, dealing with the trainings of all types of stakeholders, including MFIs. And regarding the current subject, as it is already discussed, the digitization process of MFIs, if we see, we can just break at 4 points we are digitizing the data. Number one is the office automation, what is told, the digitization of our records. Number two, when we make payment disbursement and we collection. And number three, the KYC. While doing KYC, we are digitized KYC we are doing. Now coming to this digital protection personal DPDP Act applicability to all our processes. If we see, it is applicable to the KYC only, where the personal data we are storing. And on that, there has been provisions, and there are very stringent provisions for also. The penalties, they vary from 50 crore to 250 crore if we breach any provision. And among the provisions, there are a few provisions like they say कि consent. The person's data, who owns the data, as per that they say कि data principal. As per the acta, it is data principal. I think the rule is yet to come. So that's why we have a leg space now. But the data principal, we have to collect his consent before processing his personal data. And in the consent seeking process, we have to give him in writing कि why we are collecting the data, what is the purpose we will use that data, and what are the rights available to the person, and what are the grievances he can make to the person. And after getting his consent only we can use the data. One good thing here in the act is that once we get the consent from the data principal, we can utilize the data continuously without seeking repeated consent. But again, how long we can utilize the data, that again depends upon various issues. That is, if it is a temporal issue, like they have given an example, suppose I want to sell my car, then I have given my personal details to one company who has engaged in the process of selling the car, and my car is sold in 3 months' time. And then the next day, my personal data has to be erased from the hard disk of that company. And if I am a bank or a financial agency, then only, as per rule, I think 10 years you can keep the data. Being in MFI, also the same rule is applicable to us. We can keep the data up to 10 years after we even complete the repayment process. So here there is a big gap. Although in MFI sector we know our field staff is I think 90%. And 90 or 85 something, 90% are the field staff, and the 10% are the office staff. All the staff need to be actually their capacity building is needed in this field. And whatever we do, we see from the perspective of a macro sense, because we deal with almost all MFIs, those who come for training. And the level of digitization varying from MFI to MFI. Even there are MFIs whose digitization in case of repayment, we told is significant, it is quite less also. There are smaller MFIs, still they are collecting through cash and lots of frauds and all the things happen. KYC process is also not fully digitized. So here there is a big gap, and the capacity building aspect, we have to take care of these things from all MFIs. And from BARD side, we are doing the capacity building, basically these official staffs on this 10% on that. I will give a small presentation there also. So that is the gap, and we have to deal. And one more point I want to bring, just it's a big, since we are working on that, this data DPDP Act, it has some connection with AML and KYC. If you see the AML, Anti-Money Laundering Act, that is the starting point. Because in the financial sector, finance starts from trust. Without trust, nothing happens in finance. And to build that trust, and there is not happening anything bad in that, the starting point was Anti-Money Laundering Act. To arrest fraud, arrest any kind of misappropriations, black money, terror funding, all these things, the government has imposed this Anti-Money Laundering Act. To comply the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the regulator or Reserve Bank of India introduced KYC, know your customer. You have to know all the details of the person whom I am lending or whom I am collecting the money. The KYC regulations come, that is applicable to us also, MFIs with a limited version. And in the process of KYC, we are getting everything of the data. And there is every possibility that data can be misused. To safeguard that, this act came. That's a balancing of all these things. This gives a balancing act of the right of the individual to protect his data, as well as right of the company to the needs of utilizing this data on lawful activities. So regarding capacity building, this need to be done at our every level, even at field staff as well as our senior level staff, and which is probably not very optimistic, but still this step I must be thankful to Amphi, because today they have done lots of capacity building to the sector. People, those who have attended, they know in and outs about that. So these type of things need to be repeatedly done. Yeah.
So I think from my reading of DPDP Act, it seems that this act will possibly, once it gets operational fully, it will actually change the way we think about the data. So, and also how we do business in Microfinance. And lots of capacity building will be required, and role of board will be significant in the coming years. So I would request possibly, as an industry, we would request board to have focus on this particular issue, some training programs on specifically on this particular issue, because we have a huge workforce, so that will be one important thing. Now I will turn to Sudhir sir. Sir, in UPMA you have large organizations also and small organizations, NGOs also. Sudhir, sorry. Ganesh sir told that there are gaps in digital transformation and digital levels within different MFI. So, आपके experience में छोटे MFIs और बड़े MFIs में आपको लगता है कि there is a gap, and if there is a gap, what are the reasons for those gaps?
Thank you, Alok, and thank you, Afi, for giving this opportunity. If you see the DPD Act in itself is a very small, objective, that the data collected should not be transferred. A person is a position of data, he has to ensure that the data is not transferred and data is not breached. And the data, if the transfer is not to be transferred, there is a consent clause, what my earlier speakers have told. But these three sentences have a lot of meanings. Once you are having a data, as a microfinance, we are in the position of the various data by the employees or of the clients. These data we used to transfer to credit bureaus, we used to transfer to agencies, also to the insurance agencies. Now it is up to them to protect the data. So data protection is not only our responsibility, data protection is also the responsibility of the risk bureau, of the credit bureau, of the insurance companies to whom we are transferring. That is one thing. Second thing is the consent clause. The consent clause is a very ambiguous clause, because it only says that you have to obtain the consent. Now what the consent is? Consent is of three things. One is obtained consent. You just came to me, or you are just clicking a site, उसमें लिखा है there are so many conditions, you immediately click it, I agree. This means you accept. So that is the first thing. It is a consent obtained. Then there is a consent received. Consent received is that if somebody enters in the office and he says something, then he has already consented to enter that office. This is consent obtained, consent received. And this is a consent extended. Consent extended is that if you are giving, neither you have given a consent nor you have obtained a consent, but you have just sent an emoji that it is deemed to be a consent. So consent is a very ambiguous term. So in DP Act, there is a provision of having a consent manager. We should have a consent manager. Then there is you have to ensure the protection of the data. Then you have to obtain the consent of each and every borrower. I believe it is a very, very costly exercise. Because in order to protect the data, you need lot of secure data security systems in the place. Data security is a very costly affair. Even big companies cannot afford data security, what this DPD Act desires. When they desire that the data should not breach, how can you protect the data? You have to keep something in your cache safe, then you have to put a lock. But the lock in itself is very costly. So it's a costly, very costly exercise. Second thing, obtention of consent. Now you have to go to each and every client and to ask its, seek its consent in the vernacular language. That language he understands, he or she understands. If he or she is having a time impression, even though you have to explain the consent, then you can obtain the consent. Then the third thing is about the transfer of data. You are transferring the data to somebody, and that agency also should ensure the protection of data. So you have to renew all the agreement arrangements with the institutions that their data protection is also there. So whatever data we are giving to you, to another party, normally we are giving a lot of data to the risk, to trade bureau and the rating agencies, insurance companies, value suppliers. So we have to renew all the agreements. That it is also their duty to protect data. This is again a very costly exercise. So I believe this lot of cost is involved in fully implementing this Data Protection Act, more particularly with medium and small enterprises. I don't think that their finances will suffice them to meet these requirements under the DPTB Act. Only it is a big MFIs having a business of 8 to 10,000 crores. They can provide data security, they can have consent managers, they can go to the employers, they can go to the client to obtain all these things. But for medium and small MFIs, I believe it's a very costly exercise. So my only submission is that in case if this exercise has to be implemented in once and split, I think developmental organizations like SIDBI and NABARD should provide some financial support to medium and small MFIs so as they should come up with to comply with the conditions of DPT Act. It's a very strenuous act. If that something goes wrong, you have to pay heavy penalty. And एक तरफ आपके पास हीरे का जेवर है, हीरे का हार है, वो अपने आप में कॉस्टली है, उसको प्रोटेक्ट भी करना है, और अगर चोरी हो गया तो उसके ऊपर निशान भी देना है. So it's a very for small enterprises it is very costly affair. So I believe that these sub-development agencies must come forward to support these organizations. Already हम लोग अभी बात हो रही थी challenges in microfinance, and DG sir was saying that we are charging higher rate of interest. So when we are charging high rate of interest, RBI governor has also said that MFIs are charging high rate of interest. So our bottom line is already under pressure. We have to reduce our rate of interest. At the same time, we have to put another lock on our system. So I believe it's a very costly affair. And small and MFI, medium MFIs need to be cautious, need to invest something, and they should approach the development agencies to seek their financial support in implementing that.
So that suggestion to have development sector funds for capacity building is very pertinent. I think that will be required particularly for the smaller MFI.
I have one more point, sir. So far, I have not seen the preparedness of the MFIs in particular this act. Though the act is already, I think it is from 1st April 24, it is already coming to effect. But then I have not seen any preparedness. We have already, during our workshop also, during our conference, we have also put up this topic, the preparedness of MFIs. But then again, MFIs are yet to come up with the system that they are going to make their preparedness to comply with this particular act.
आपने एक्चुअली सर हमें बहुत डरा दिया है.
नहीं सर, हमने नहीं डराया, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने डराया हुआ है. एंड गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने हमको नहीं डराएगा, और 127 नेशंस ने अपने पब्लिक को डरा के रखा हुआ है.
Just one small point I want to add, basically the senior or management level. If you are IT person in all MFIs, those who are working on the package, they will actually delve into the act and insert suitable clauses in our software itself when we are going to collect the KYC. There itself one informal that IT digital based consent, giving all details, notice period as well as consent. That would, I think, help us. We need to actually look into that. Yeah.
So, one question for Arvind. So, you have been looking at very closely because you're responsible for the data in your company. So is it that costly?
Like I said, the ecosystem has to be prepared and that can be costly. Yes, of course, and like he mentioned that we have to take consent, though digitally, but that consent has to be taken, which we have already started taking consent. But of course, those development is required, and believe me, it's not about only taking a consent. Once you have been given a consent, then all the more so because you have to store that data and you have to become the custodian of data and ensure that there is no breach. Because the fine comes only when the customer says yes, I'm ready to give the data, and then the actual problem starts.
वही बात हुई सर, हीरे का हार मिल गया, हार तो मिल गया, उसको प्रोटेक्ट करना है, उसमें हीरे का हार से ज़्यादा खर्चा उस पे हो जाएगा.
So the storage of data and protecting it, the security features, that is what makes it expensive.
So I'll now open the floor to the audience, and then after that, in case we have time, we'll have one more round with you, but I'm not sure we'll have time. But in case you have any interesting questions, you can raise your hands and you can specify your name.
I think we have this gentleman over here.
Yeah, and then you can direct the question to any specific person.
Hi, this is Partho from Asha. My question to specifically to Arvind and probably generally to everybody is I think the ecosystem has to find out a solution which should be a cheaper solution. But in the meanwhile, do you think account aggregator would be a sort of a solution where you could have a digitally logged data where you can sort of access that data and as well as keep it safe? Is my question. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Again, very pertinent point. So let me tell you, we already have CKYC.
Yeah.
Are we using CKYC? So that is a question, and these are the questions we have to ask in the forums. Like Shah mentioned, it is the government of India. So we have to ask these questions over there that we are uploading data in CKYC, but when we try to download, so our customer segment, they don't have their CKYC numbers. How many of the customers would be willingly able to give you their CKYC numbers, right? That itself would solve a lot of problem. Then every MFI need not collect, KYC information from the customer if we are able to download it from the SARSAI site, right? So similarly, account aggregators are not very willing to work with this customer segment. Why? Because it is an unorganized segment. The bank accounts is not something that they are very sure of. Their income is not something that they are very sure of. Right, so all of these challenges are there when we talk about this specific segment. So I'm not sure how account aggregators would be able to help, but I am sure, if we actually collectively talk about through the SROs, that we should be using CKYC, we should be giving CKYC number to our customer and take in CKYC number so that becomes a reference point and all of us need not collect the same amount of information every time. Yeah.
I think that's bang on, but at the same time, considering the fact that there's a digital footprint everywhere, even at the lower levels, which we can see, I think probably it's for us to advocate and to the relevant authorities if we can make use of account aggregator, because they also will be having this digital footprint, so that it could be used.
Sir,
for the larger purpose.
Sir, can I just account aggregator ecosystem? Their primary condition is they have to take consent, then only they will share. So the consent issue will always be there.
But then what about the biometric? All the biometric and the location data which you are capturing. So that also is I'm sure that will be considered.
Biometric data. So biometric data, obviously we cannot store.
Yeah.
Right? So now it is not allowed that you should store biometric data. So earlier there were MFIs who were doing center attendance using biometric machines, right? But now you cannot store that information, especially because of this Aadhaar and Aadhaar related frauds that is coming into the system. So that is not something which is allowed. Even staff attendance, yes, till now we are able to, but customer data, wherever a payment is involved, we are not supposed to store that.
Any other questions? Please raise hand.
What is exactly the role of SROs for that?
Enough.
Advocacy.
So then, I presume that that many of the smaller MFIs do not have much, sensitized on this act and its implication. Sudhir ji bhi bola aise. So, what is the master plan for the SROs, RBI, then Equifax, like SEBI, credit bureau institutions? Is there any kind of master plan or something like that? So it should be aware to all the MFIs, particularly smaller MFIs, because I don't MFIs can afford that, but smaller MFI is difficult for, this is cost involved. He said that, Mr. Muraka said. So this is a serious concern for that.
You are doing that. What is the role of SRO? You are doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Additionally, what is summit we are doing, but beyond summit, we need to be very practical. That is my concern. So, additionally, on MPhil side, I just wanted to update one latest development that 3 years back we have commissioned one project with the HSBC, and next in the coming days we have already commissioned a second round of project with the HSBC on this particular digital platforms and all. Basically, as lightly pointed out Sudhir sir and other my fellow panelists about the expensive and the storage of data and all. From RBI guidelines perspective, if I talk about referring to the 22 September guideline, the RBI has given a space to the SRO to bring together all the MFIs and collectively have a discussions and then engage with the technical service provider and create an enable platform for the practitioner as well as the customers, and that helps the sector and is easy to accept as well as easy to use in a user-friendly mode. To carry forward that particular thing, basically, that's what the current HSBC project that MPhil is carrying out. It is specifically focusing on that particular aspect. And we have identified two specific, we have signed already two technical service provider. One is FinPay, you might be knowing that, and another one is UltraCash. And we requested this technical service provider to create a customer interface applications. Further, to be going beyond that, as far as just to address Dr. Raut's conversation, what exactly he shared, just to address the awareness among the customers as well as training to the staff of the MFIs. We have identified TMI E2E Academy. You might be knowing it's a technical academy, and we are expecting that academy to work with that for bringing some brochures as well as some training modules and some audio visuals for the customers in animated form or some others form. So this are ongoing process. Basically, we are looking at that, and soon this will be in place for the usage of our member institutions in this particular sector. And one critical thing that we specifically focused, we want this application, this interface should be in that particular format, that whatever the existing software or the applications in institutions are using currently, it should be user friendly and API enabled, so that that can be implemented within that existing software and application. It should not go beyond that. That is exactly our objective, and that is the reason we commissioned recently. We have already identified 9 large microfinance institutions in that particular project, and we will be coming very shortly. Thank you.
आशीष जी, आपके बात का ईमानदार जवाब देते हैं, ऑनेस्ट, बिल्कुल ऑनेस्ट. डाटा प्रोटेक्शन इज योर बेबी, यू हैव टू प्रोटेक्ट इट. There is nobody else is coming to protect your money, your asset. It is your money, you have to protect. What MFIN, bird or anything can do, they can guide you, they can motivate you, they can advise you, they can concentrate you, they can aware you, anything can be done. But basically, data protection is your responsibility. Nobody else will come to rescue you. Am I correct, sir?
Yes.
ये पूरी तरीके से जिसका बेबी है उसको अपने बच्चे का चिंता करना है. कोई दूसरा मोहल्ले का आदमी आपके बच्चे को लेगा नहीं, गोदी नहीं लेगा. आपको ही अपने बच्चों को संभालना है. हाँ, दूसरा वाला आपको कान पकड़ के मार सकता है, बेटा ये गंदी बात मत करो, ऐसे मत करो. You have to do like that. You have to do like that. But MFIN, Sadhan, whatever it is, MTI, they will come, they will create awareness, they will create workshop, they will give lot of training, there will be consultant, you will advise to appoint some 50, 20, 60 these consent managers in all room, DJ and everything they will do. Ultimate responsibility is yours. That responsibility is nobody coming to share. Am I right, sir?
Yes, absolutely. So, any more questions? Do we have time? No? Yeah. So, I think it's time for, sir, you can leave, we will have another session there. So, thank you, sir, for participating in this.
So please wait for 2 minutes. I would like to call
Let me
upon...
wind it up. Let me wind up and then...
Yeah, sure.
So, thank you very much to all my panelists. So, this is a very pertinent issue. The data protection and the new act which is coming. I'm sure this has come only a few months ago, and in the years to come, this will become one of the most important talking points in the microfinance sector. And I'm actually waiting for some action to be taken by some authority. Once a single notice comes to any MFI, then the awareness regarding this will actually increase. So unless that happens, nobody else. It will be like elephant in the room. It will be there, but the cost of the notice, right? Yeah. No, cost of the notice I don't know. I don't know. Charge 50 crores, I think. Yeah, but yeah. 50 to 250 crores is the cost of the notice. Cost of the notice, yeah, 250 crores. So this is going to be very important. So I'd like to thank all the panelists and the audience as well for being very patient. Thank you.
I would like all of you to please be on stage. I would like to call upon Vijit Pera. Please come up for the felicitation. MD Sampurna, please give a big hand for him.
Young entrepreneur. সবাই একটু হাততালি দিই আমরা কন্টিনিউয়াস ভালো আছে ঠিক আছে close that.
Thank you all of you. It was a very nice discussion, very pertinent for our landscape. We now break for lunch. I think people are already hungry. We now break for lunch and reconvene in Hall 7 for our next sessions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.